Okay, today we're going to do a video on the replacement of the gas valve and pilot assembly on a heat and glow fireplace similar to this one. It's not a terribly difficult job, but you have to have some basic pipe fitting skills, knowledge of basic wiring and controls, and you have to be comfortable with working with natural gas. So some mid-level technical skills, you can get this job done, and we'll walk through exactly how to do that. So I hope this is helpful for you, and good luck with your project. Okay, replacing gas valve and pilot assembly on a heat and glow gas fireplace. Obviously first remove the bottom grill cover that covers the valve and gas supply lines, which is down there, and remove the lugs. The lugs go back in a certain sequence. Check the owner's manual for how they go back in. Also, of course, remove the glass enclosure, and there's a screen over there. If you can't remove the glass enclosure and the screen and the bottom access panel, then you shouldn't be doing this job. So I'm starting here. I'm going to take these two screws out to remove the log grid, and we'll take the those little flame pieces out of there too. The Chad. Be right back. With the gas supply off, I remove this side of the flex connector, which goes to the valve, and then I'll take the other side out. That's the inlet side of the flex connector that goes to the gas valve. And then this base piece pops out, which exposes this mounting plate, which has the pilot assembly connected to it. It's connected by screws, so this whole unit is going to have to be removed and taken out, and then we can get to the gas valve. With the gas supply off, I remove this side of the flex connector, which goes to the valve, and then I'll take the other side out. That's the inlet side of the flex connector that goes to the gas valve. Okay, so 11 screws, and this entire assembly comes out. The only thing you'll have to disconnect is in this case, two wire leads that come from the wall switch to operate the unit. But other than that, this entire assembly comes out in one piece, and you can replace the valve and the components on the plate as separate units. So we'll keep moving. Okay, so I'm removing the outlet side of the gas valve. We removed the inlet side earlier, and make sure you hold back on the adapter going into the valve, and then you can remove this side over here. Just screw it off. Disconnected the outlet from the valve that goes up to the unit, and now I'm going to remove 4 screws, 2 and 2 underneath, and this whole unit will come off the base plate. Then we can start to work. Okay, so remove the there's actually 3 screws. There's 2 on top, there's 1 on the bottom, even though there's 2 holes. And now you can take your gas valve off of this mounting bracket that holds the piezo igniter, and that's the on-off switch. The 2 extra wires are actually the leads. These leads go over to a wall-operated switch. If you don't have a wall switch, you use this piezo igniter to fire it up and leave that in the on position. It doesn't have to be in the on position when you have a wall switch, because you're bypassing the rocker switch that comes inside the unit. So there's a couple screws underneath here, and I'll take this gas valve off and put the new one on. Okay, took the mounting screws off the old unit, put them on the new valve. Now I'll slide the new valve back onto the bracket. Okay, those two grommets that were here between the base plate and the thermocouple assembly, I pushed them through so we can pull everything through, straight through that other side. Now I got to get this mess off here, which is some kind of rubberized cement that they have. So got to figure out how to remove that, and then we can pull the pilot assembly out. Okay, I flipped the whole base over. This is the bracket that holds the pilot assembly. Got to take two screws out, one on each side, and there's two that hold this actual assembly in place. I took those out already, so I'll take this off and move forward. Okay, ready to withdraw this assembly out. The wires go on the right-hand side hole. The pilot tubing in the center, and the thermopile tubing on the left. So I'm going to draw this whole thing out, remove it. Okay, so you got the old valve and the old pilot assembly removed. There's the new pilot assembly and the new valve installed on the bracket with the piezo igniter and the piezo contacts placed on the inside and outside spades connectors on the valve. The new assembly does come with new grommets. Okay, so reassembling wiring for the piezo igniter and for the switch on the right hand hole, pilot tubing through the center, got the grommet in, the new grommet, thermopile tubing through the left hole, put the grommet in. I'm going to have to reuse the grommet that was in here. They didn't have a new one on the unit, and I'm going to have to seal that with gasket maker, Permatex. Okay, reconnecting the pilot assembly bracket to the pilot assembly, and then that will get reconnected to the base. Grommets are in. Okay, so the pilot assembly bracket is in. This is the bottom, and the grommets are in. I put a healthy amount of Permatex Red heat resistant sealant around those wires. Everything else is good to go. Okay, new gas valve is mounted onto the old bracket, and we're lining it up, and we're going to attach that bracket and then reconnect the tubing. Just one note, the new valve did come with this adapter. You can, for the purposes of this installation and this pilot assembly, you can remove that adapter. If you look at the pilot tubing, this will go straight into that connection without the adapter. Okay, moving forward. Okay, the whole bottom assembly is completed. You got the pilot tubing connection, the thermopile connection. You've connected the wiring. If you were smart, you took pictures when you took the wiring apart. You have your gas outlet from the valve connected, which goes up to the burner. Remember, put this fitting in first and put Permatex or pipe dope on it, and then hold back on this fitting when you tighten up this one. You don't need dope on this fitting. That's a seal that's made brass to brass. These two leads will reconnect after we put the plate back into the unit for the wall switch. And we'll just give a real quick test on this piezo igniter. The igniter button's here. The igniter sits back there. And we've got a nice spark back there, so we're good to go. The piezo igniter just simply plugs into the back, right back here. It's a round spade connection, plugs in. Okay, so everything's done back here. Looks nice and clean. When you do, when you put this tubing in, make sure you make nice gentle curves, and make sure it's straight when it goes into the valve, where it connects with the fitting, so you get a nice gas tight seal. Everything's going to have to be soap tested once you put this in and put pressure on it. But it's only inches water column at gas pressure, so shouldn't be any leaks if you put it together correctly. Okay, so it's time to take this whole unit and get it back into the fireplace. Just one more note, make sure that this gasket is in place, nice and flat, and that it's sealing all the way around, because it's got to be airtight. It's one thing I forgot to mention, make sure when you're using these fittings and reusing fittings that you clean it with a wire brush all the way around so you have nice clean threads. And on this fitting, we're going to apply some gasket sealant or plumber's tape, whatever you prefer. When this is made up, you hold back on the other side. This one's already made up because I took it off that way. But make sure you clean the threads and use sealant when you put this back together. Okay, I placed the whole pan, the whole unit back in one assembly. You got to make sure that that gasket that this sits on is flat all the way around and sealed. It's got to be a seal. Back here is where it draws in the fresh air for burning. So this actually has a coaxial chimney, these fireplaces. So there's an exhaust and there's an intake. But it's got to be sealed between the bottom and the front glass and the burning chamber. So you've got 13 screws to put back in to mount the plate, and then I'll reconnect this gas line, this final connection right over here. And last thing is we'll reconnect the spade connectors for the wall switch. This particular unit has a switch on the wall right up there. Okay, be back in a minute. Okay, the base plate assembly is back in. Careful about making sure that gasket is sealed all the way around. 13 screws. Reconnecting the final connection back to the inlet valve for the gas supply. Always make sure you hold back when you tighten this last fitting. Very important. 2 wrenches. Okay, I've reassembled everything, put the logs back in. I reconnected the spade connectors to that goes up to the wall switch up there. I turned the gas supply valve on, and now very important, I made some soap solution here, and I'm going to use a brush. I'm going to soap solution all of the gas fittings. That includes the pilot supply fitting, the thermopile connection, the inlet and outlet to the gas connections. Everything's got to be soap tested, extremely important. Don't do a job without testing all your fittings. One other note, those logs have to go in a very specific order. You can download the owner's manual for these off the internet, and if you look at the bottom of the logs, they are notched, and there's various chamfers, so they fit together a very certain way. And I put the that burning ember material back in, the Chad, before I put the logs in. This hood or base plate cover goes right down in after you connect the base plate with all your mechanicals on there. So, all right, I'm going to put everything back up, see if she fires up. And voila, she's running. Now I guess we can just test the wall switch to see that it goes on and off. What was going on with this particular stove, she had intermittent ignition, so it would ignite, go off, ignite, go off. And when we checked the valve, the turn down valve stem, something was wrong because it would keep spinning. So she's got all new parts in here now, and we'll just check the wall switch. We should be good to go. All right. Awesome. Talk to you later.